So you want to start a business, huh? You want to be successful? You want to be able to afford a nice house for your family? Well, you can't! Unless you know how to operate one. Today, I'll be running through how businesses are organized, some of the terms used in business, and how you could possibly start one of your own. That way you aren't broke, like me. Okay, to start us off, let's go through how businesses are categorized. A sole proprietorship, also called simply a proprietorship, is a business operated by a single person, kind of like me on this project. And basically, they operate alone. This comes with some advantages and some disadvantages. As I mentioned just now, you operate alone, which means you get all the money, wake up whenever you want, do whatever. Sounds good being your own boss, right? Yeah? No. You also have full liability for any lawsuits, and the banks are not friendly to your business. By the way, liability is legal responsibility for the business. A sole proprietor also might have to pay for supplies and rent for a building they operate. Not only this, but it is difficult to raise financial capital to begin with. That's the money used to expand it.
Oh, how could some of these problems be solved, you ask?
Well, it's simple math. One person who runs a business plus a second person who runs a business equals a partnership. A business that you both own and operate. Kabam! Problem solved. Let me explain how. You, being broke, may need somebody with the extra moolah to help raise capital for the business, or you may need an extra hand to help out. Either way, a partnership has advantages and disadvantages, just like a proprietorship. An advantage is that you both have help running the business, which is great. Another is that in case of a lawsuit, you both sign the papers. You also gain more money, and it's easier to borrow money from the bank, which is sweet. But there's always a catch. You both have liability for anything that goes wrong, and because there are two owners, you may decide against one another and fight about financial decisions. Yada yada yada.
But wait, there's more.
There are also corporations, which are companies ran by a group of people and are operated under a license. These are the most noticeable of the other options, considering they take up like almost all the economy. There are brands like Coca-Cola, Valve, Starbucks, just to name a few. Being so public, they have the most interference from the government, so they have nothing to hide. Mostly. But before you start a corporation, you need to have a charter, which is a document granted by a country that defines its rights and privileges. As you would think, there are advantages and disadvantages just like the others. One advantage is that it is treated as though it were a person, which means no one actual person has liability here. Another is that it makes so much money because it's recognized more than proprietorships and partnerships are. The disadvantages are that they are literally the most public things in the economy. Imagine McDonald's being like, not public. Huh. Being so public, they have the most interference from the government, so they have nothing to hide. Mostly. Other forms of business are franchises, which are basically businesses that have permission to sell suppliers' goods, and a non-profit organization which does services for no cash, but still gets it anyway. Huh. Well, that was fun. I hope you... There's still terms that you still need to know. How are you supposed to make a business operate when you don't even know how to boil water? Come on, you gotta know these. A labor union is a group of workers who want better wages and working conditions. Back when there was no color, it helped save the US from the Great Depression. Pretty neat. Nowadays, people in some states have shops that force you to join a union, which is not very healthy for the company. Imagine you join a union, you get a higher wage and better conditions, blah blah blah. You enjoy it for now, but then wham! Your manager. More people join and get employed, and more of your money goes in their pockets. Obviously, not good for the business. Or you. That's why some states have right to work laws, which ban union shops. Moving on. Sometimes you want your way whenever working at a company, because they treat you unfairly, or don't pay you enough, or etc. The easy solution to that is to not actually. And so, there are some tools available just in case you want your way in a business. A strike, not this, is when workers, stop working to prove a point. If work has no workers, it doesn't work. Picketing is when those guys outside bring out signs and start ranting about all those issues with the company. You see, workers have power to make a change, but since it is against a company after all, which obviously has some legal power, they also have tools at their disposal. They can lock out workers to prevent the union from working, therefore eliminating problems they may cause. They can mediate or bring in somebody else, aka a third-party company, to help reach an agreement, and similarly, they can arbitrate, which allows the third-party company to solve the problem for both sides. I know you're thinking, But that sounds like a you problem. But basically, anyone is able to start a business. As long as you know what you're talking about, it's easy. In theory. I'm glad to have helped you understand business a bit better, so you don't become this. Thanks for watching. Don't do bad decisions. Drink Pepsi. I don't know. I'm just gonna go play CS. The end. And you can turn it off, Mr. Goff. Thank you.